Shalom, on the stuff, source by giving all praise to Yahweh, Bashem Yahushua, Bashem Kadash. Double honors to the apostles of great millstone, and honors to brothers doing the work, the most sound truth and in sincerity. Yahweh is the raw name of whom the world ignorantly calls God, Jehovah, or Yahweh. His raw name is Yahweh. His son's true name is Yahushua, and when we pray Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushua, by meaning in, Ha meaning the, and Sham meaning names, Yahweh in the name of Yahushua. Real quick, just wanted to touch on this. So this is on the BBC, right? So 3 charts that are warning signs flashing for Trump on Iran war, right? I was basically reading it and just seeing this particular graph, right? So this is Trump's handling of Iran conflict, right? Percentage who said they disapprove or approve of how Trump is handling. You see it's pretty much split by party lines, right? And preset that we always have to bring in this context, right? Revelation 13:11, and I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon, right? So here what we're basically saying is that you've got this this animal, right? It's a lamb. You're thinking it's for your good, right? But these times, right, it actually is going to speak as a dragon, right? These people are voting, right? But use 2 horns like a lamb, right? Because you've got your so-called left and your so-called right, and actually neither of them were for your benefit, okay? And that's one of the things that this truth it opens up your mind to, right? The fact that no matter who is in power, it's still the same beast, right? And it's still going to bring about these draconian, this draconian legislation and these draconian laws, okay? So as we see here, right, it says, has a total, right, 37% approve, right, 61% disapprove, right? And you see here 20% of Republicans, 79% of Republicans approve, right? It says that's support from the party faithful, right, which looks past his campaign promises to pull blah, blah. Look what this person and what this individual said, right? It is better to pay more now than to pay a lot more later on. Poll here said of rising US petrol prices, right? And this is what you're basically witnessing with a lot of these statements is straight up witchcraft, right? It's incantations, or I believe the word that the apostle Apostle Ramlab was the first time I heard this word. Let's see, let me get it in. Oh yeah, this is the one. Let me bring it here. Right, which is to inculcate, right? It says to fix beliefs or ideas in someone's mind, especially by repeating them often, right? It says inculcate something into someone. Our coach has worked hard to inculcate a team spirit, right? But when you see what this man does with his media machine, right, is you're seeing and hearing these same statements and phrases being said over and over and over again, right? Just straight up witchcraft, right? Working on the minds of the people who are none the wiser, okay? Which all of this made me think about this idea of a hero, okay? Because here it is, you've got something that is patently bad for the American people. They don't understand that there's going to be a much smaller what's this word here? Much smaller harvest, right? Because the price of fertilizer has gone up, and there's been issues. Basically that's the main thing, right? The price of fertilizer has gone up, and there was basically a point at which farmers had to have got food into the ground, right? Crops into the ground, right? So this is going to have a lasting effect, but people don't seem to understand it, right? Or rather, they have been bewitched, right? Precept that's just in my mind at the moment. I'm going to grab it, right? Because this is Esau, man, and everything that he does is all about witchcraft. Okay, this is Isaiah 47:12. It says, stand now with thine enchantments and with the multitude of thy sorceries, wherein thou hast labored from thy youth. So from America's inception, they've been all about this witchcraft. They've been all about pushing and using witchcraft. Okay, it says, if so be thou shalt be able to profit, if so be thou mayest prevail. Okay, and we know the answer to that question. They won't prevail, right? Ultimately, because this is ultimately being facetious. Like, yo, all right, cool. If so, all right, cool. Hey, you prevail, right? But when the Lord comes back, right? All of these witches and warlocks, right? They ain't going, all the power, all the demons, sorry, the spirits that were dealing with them, they ain't gonna be answering them, right? Because ultimately those spirits, they answer to the Lord. Okay, scripture says that all things obey his will. It's Sirach 18:3. It says, who governeth the world with the palm of his hands, and all things obey his will. Right, for he is the king of all, by his power dividing holy things among them from profane. Right, yes, hoping it will get me another precept, but let's grab this. Right, this is Job. We can get two as well. This is Job and 1 as well, but I'll grab this one. Listen, and Slakia, Job 2 and 1. Again, there was a day when the sons of the Most High came to present themselves before Yahweh, and Satan came also among them to present himself before the Lord Yahweh. Right, and that's it. And then when you know the story of Job, right, and with Satan and the Most High, basically the Most High was the one that was basically doing a bet, right, with Satan, right. And then you got this account as well. It's just First Kings 22, and I'll start from 20. Yeah, I'll just start from 20. I always look for the paragraph marker, but so it says, and Yahweh said, who shall persuade Ahab that he may go up and fall at Ramoth Gilead? Right, and even on that, the Lord basically was saying, look, man, I have an occasion against this individual. Okay, I have an occasion to let this individual die, right? Which that's just even thinking about that's a scary thing to think about, right? That the most I can be like, yeah, man, I want this guy dead, right? And there's counsel in the heavens being like, all right, cool, how are we going to take them this individual out, right? And you look at some of the ways people go, and just like, yo, the Most High had a vendetta against that individual. Okay, let me carry on. It says, and one said on this manner, and another said on that manner. And there came forth a spirit, right, and stood before the Lord Yahweh, and said, I will persuade him. And Yahweh said unto him, wherewith? And he said, I will go forth, and I will be a lying spirit in the mouth of all his prophets. And he said, thou shalt persuade him and prevail also. Go forth and do so. Right. So in the same way, right, that the Most High can basically put a lot, put a lying spirit, right, in someone that is basically dealing with basically Israelite, if you will, right, because that the king, right, which one king? I forget, was he a king? So I'm just forgetting my history here, slacking. Yeah, former king of Israel, Salakia, right? But basically, yeah, but the Most High had an agenda against him. Yet you think the Most High ain't gonna put lying spirits in these spirits in these different demons and that these elites pray to? Of course, right? Because the Most High is the one that controls them, right? And ultimately, the Most High is using these elites, right, to bring about this judgment, right, that is going to be upon our people, right? This is Psalm 17 and 13. It says, arise, O Yahweh, disappoint him, cast him down, deliver my soul from the wicked, right? These Edomites, which is thy sword, right? And then on that, let's jump to this real quick. Also, Ezekiel 21 from 9. It says, son of man, prophesy and say, thus saith Yahweh, a sword is sharpened and also furbished, right? Right, and one of the things I always go into, right, is furbish, going into like polished, right? Esau is polishing and perfecting his weaponry, right? There was a video, I won't play it now. There was a video that I was watching earlier on, right, which brothers can jump on it, right, and watch and look it up, man. Come on, man, where is it? Just looking at my history. Oh damn, Slack. I think I watched it on my phone, on my work laptop. But I sent it to Arkin. What's it? Let me see what it's called. Because I forget the title at the moment. Yeah, so brothers can look up new AI designed meta machines as one word, right? Keep moving even after taking damage, and you basically see they got this AI robot, which is basically it's like it's a robot of robots. So then you chop one bit off, and it keeps moving, right? And this is if they're showing you this, they've been at it, right? That's one thing that we've always known about. Um, that we've always known about in it's like I lost my trail of thought, but let's continue, man. So I lost my trail of thought there. So, right. So it says sort of oh yeah, as we said, right, you always have what they show you, and then you have the stuff that the military really deals with, right? So it says, verse 10, right? It says, it is sharpened to make a slaughter. It is furbished, right? That it may glitter. Should we then make mirth? And contemneth the rod of my son as every tree. And you have given it to be furbished, right? That it may be handled. The sword is sharpened and is furbished to give it into the hand of the slayer. Right? So the Lord is going to use this devil Esau, right, for his purpose, right? To slay. Right, and the main people on Esau's hit list, which are ultimately on the Most High's hit list, right, are Jake, right, the wicked of our people, right. Now Esau's gonna get it too, right, because the Most High ultimately hates Esau, right, and will ultimately have mercy on Jacob, right. But yeah, made me think of this idea of a hero, right? Which is basically this, what they have in Trump, right? The fact that a man is going to say, well, this thing that is making my life hard and is going to continue to make my life hard, I will support it because of the individual, right? This you saw it with here in the UK. You had Nigel Farage. Here it is, this guy's in tweed suits, right? But yet he's a millionaire, and he's portrayed as a man of the people, right? And you had low IQ Brits, right? Baconites, basically, getting basically they used him to get these low IQ Brits to vote Brexit, which Brexit's been horrible for the UK economy, right? But we understand these things are all planned ultimately, right? So it says, how have regimes used figures, a hero, if you will, to push through ideas that don't necessarily benefit the people who adopt these ideas, right? So regimes have always understood one simple truth: people don't rally around policies; they rally around people, right? A character, right? A compelling hero figure can make abstract or even harmful ideas feel meaningful, necessary, or inevitable, right? One of the things when I was reading this first time round, right, is I looked and I was like, wait there, why is it that they're not showing any I mean outside of this guy, right? They're not showing anything about these Western guys, because these Western elites, they do the same, so-called elites, your presidents and prime ministers or whatever, they do the same things. Okay, and once again, I just mentioned Farage, but this once again is that witchcraft, right? Of saying all of these other people, they're evil, but it's like, no, you're evil. You're a part of this too, right? It says leaders are turned into larger than life figures who embody the nation itself. Criticizing them becomes emotionally equivalent to portraying your country. Right, this is why it works. People transfer trust from the person to the policies. If the hero supports it, it must be right. And I remember watching one clip where this is the thing, you never know with anything online these days whether it's real or fake, right? But it was or rather staged, right? But there was these two children interviewing their parents, and basically the children was like, so if Trump bombed this city, right, leveled it, would you be okay with it? And the parents are like, well, actually, Trump must have had a reason. Okay, right? So it's just going, just going to show you just how people take that cult of personality, right? It says emotional storytelling over rational thinking. Regimes don't sell policies, they sell stories. We are under threat. Oh, they would have had a nuclear bomb. Right? We were humiliated and must rise again. This sacrifice is necessary for a glorious future, right? This sacrifice is necessary for a glorious future. Let's read this again. It is better to pay more now, right? The sacrifice is necessary than to pay a lot more later on. for a more glorious future, right? But we understand that Babylon cannot be healed. There will be no more glory, right? It says these narratives are usually tied to the hero's personal journey, struggle, vision, destiny. Why it works: emotion overrides cost-benefit thinking. People accept hardship if it's meaningful, right? And manufactured consent. Because I was trying to think of some of the terminology, right? In fact, let me see. Manufactured consent, right? Let's see what we have. Just give me the definition. Yeah, define. Because it's like I don't really want to get the book. Yes, this looks small enough. Here we go. Right, so it says manufactured consent, right? This is from fiveable.me. It says manufactured consent is the process by which governments, media, and powerful groups create an illusion of agreement among the public towards their policies or agendas, often through manipulation of information and media. This technique is used to legitimize power structures within contemporary government regimes without overt force or coercion, right? And that's one of the things as well that I always go into through the spirit, which is this idea of, the West likes to look at, in China they they just do this, in this country they just do that, right? But we in the West do exactly the same thing. It's just it won't necessarily be coming from the government, right? It will be coming from public, private companies rather, right? So use the example of the CV, right? Boris Johnson famously came out and said we are not a country that locks down, right? But then the Arsenal Man City game that was due that weekend got cancelled, and then a whole load of other private businesses started to close. And then the government came in, well, you look like you want to get locked down, so we're going to lock you down on your behest. So they manufactured consent in that regard. Okay, so let's read this. The hero is everywhere. Posters, speeches, education, media. Constant exposure normalizes the message. Dissent becomes socially dangerous or unthinkable. Why it works: humans are social conformists. If it looks universal, it feels true, right? So that's why the algorithm does this. People be watching things, and then seeing the comments, and then the comments will seemingly agree with their worldviews, what we refer to as an echo chamber, right? Moral framing: sacrifices versus virtue. Necessary sacrifice, right? Contribution to a greater good. This is creation of an enemy, if you will. So the hero needs a villain, right? Regimes often identify internal, external enemies, claim only the hero can protect the people, right? It says fear simplifies thinking. It pushes people to accept extreme policies for safety, right? You watch V for Vendetta, you see the police van say for your safety, right? It says these systems work because they tap into very normal human tendencies: desire for meaning, fear of uncertainty, need for belonging, right? And that's what Esau has basically used among the people, right? But yeah, that's all I kind of had on that. Like, so I just found it interesting that despite it being very much against very much against people's interests, they're still for it, right? But that's because they made Trump a hero, right? And these people will listen if their hero says so. As always, Lord, what I was edifying. Till next time, we say shalom.